one of these. We're very excited to see you guys here. Yeah, do a little adjusting. So as you know, we're gonna have a big announcement today. It's gonna change a lot of things, but we're not gonna do that until about 15 to 20 minutes in, when we have a few more people here with us. Right now we've got 24, which is amazing, but we're gonna wait a little bit. And in the meantime, and after the announcement, we're going to be talking about our ICW travels. We've done 2 ICW runs, as you know, especially if you've been following us the whole time, which in our last video we established that's a lot of people, which is really cool. The first one was when?
Yeah, it was 2017. 2017, yeah.
I don't know why I asked.
Yeah.
First one was in 2017, and the second one was in 2022. So each one actually took us a full year, which is kind of cool. They took a year for different reasons. The first one took a year because it had to, and the second one took a year because we wanted it to.
Yeah, and that was quite the difference.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be talking about all the differences in this video, the mistakes we made.
Yeah, and the things that we did wrong, and then how we corrected them the second time around, and if those corrections worked, because that's more important than just making corrections. Yes. Now, we're going to be doing other live videos as well. The next live video we're going to do is going to be the ocean crossings. Mm-hmm. And
comparing and contrasting the ocean crossings. Just like this one, same format, just talking about the first one and the second one, what we changed for the second one, gear updates, things like that, and triumphs and tribulations. Feel free to ask questions throughout these videos. If we're going to be checking your questions on here. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at your questions. If I miss your question, just ask it again, and hopefully we'll get to have a little conversation. That's how we like to conduct our live videos. So anyone's welcome to chime in anytime, as long as it's on topic. Okay. So we'll start by talking about our first ICW journey, and
oh yes, so
we have topics written down so that we stay on track.
All right.
We want to talk about sort of the mistakes we made, or things that we just didn't know the first time around, because we were so green. You know, this was our first leg of our journey. We were learning
our first travel.
Yeah, we were learning all about wisdom. We were learning about things that we needed.
Yeah, because when we started, all we'd really done was sail from Baltimore down to Annapolis and back and forth. It's about a 30-mile stretch on the Chesapeake Bay. And then to test out how it would all work, we did one trip where we went down the whole bay, which was awesome. And then we went out offshore for 4 days, and we were maybe 20-25 miles offshore. So now I would consider that as insanely close to shore and way too dangerous. But at the time, we thought we were really far out into the ocean. We were 20 miles out. You couldn't see land anymore. So, and then we came back in. So that was all we'd actually done before cruising. So then when we did the ICW,
it was a learning experience. Yeah.
So, well, real quick, some main key points. If you were gonna do the ICW, Bob's tracks, look them up.
Yeah.
They're amazing. All the sketchy parts where when you're looking on avionics and reading the notes and it says, all these little issues and danger problems and shoaling, he went through. He draws 5'6", 6 foot, somewhere around there.
And I believe he goes through yearly.
Yeah, he goes down and up, and it's all he does all the time. And you just follow his track. And if he made it through the sketchy shoal, you might, which is better than just going blindly.
So the first one we did was pretty blind. We didn't have a lot of connections in the sailing world. We didn't know a lot of things, as we've established. And a really, really big error we made was not paying more attention to the time of year.
Yeah.
And that affected a lot of things for us. There was, it was freezing the whole way.
It was winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so cold. And we don't have an enclosed cockpit, so I was out in the cold. And at that time of year, the prevailing winds are, actually in general, the prevailing winds are coming from the south. So if you're trying to go south, you're nose into the wind. So we could only go when there was a cold front, which means the weather was horrible and cold. It was just, oh. And then also being that time, they hadn't dredged in a long time.
Yeah, nothing was dredged because it was off season. And as you know, we have a long keel. We're 6.5 feet. And so we bumped bottom a lot, and we became known as the people who run aground
all the time.
Which I mean is fair.
Yeah, it's what we did. We just found all the spots that were 6.5 feet or less all the time. So that was, yeah. Now, so along that, so you got Bob's tracks, and if you look him up, it's Bob 423 or 5453. He's Bob the number. He has a Beneteau, and it's the Beneteau model number is his name, but it's Bob's tracks, and they're awesome. You download them, you import them into Navionics, you can see the tracks running. It's amazing. Second thing is call CETO, not when you run aground, before you go through an area that you're gonna run aground. Call them.
This is something we really learned along the way in the second ICW passage was there's so many resources out there other than Navionics and other navigation equipment that you can use to just get local knowledge. And the best local knowledge we found was through the towing companies. So we would, if we were going off into a place that was a little bit less traveled, we would always contact CETO, and they were a wealth of information and knowledge.
Yeah. They tell you like spots to anchor, to wait, and they're like, oh, hey, this crazy tide's gonna come, and when it does, this other random thing that's unpredictable is gonna happen, because it happens all the time there, and they see it, so they know about it. Now, a lot of people talk about getting the U.S. Coast Guard survey data from when they scan the whole ICW. I didn't find that as helpful as just talking to the CETO captains. They're
the ones coming out and saving everyone's butts.
They're like, oh yeah, people always run aground here. Don't go at 2. It's like, okay, don't go at 2. Got it.
Yes. So as you know, big part of this for us is the electric motor, and so we're going to go into that a lot more later. We're going to have a whole segment of this video about the electric motor and how to travel the ICW and with an electric motor, and like what that entails, goods and bads. But I will say, with the electric motor comes the battery setup, and the first time around our battery setup was so poor.
Yeah.
And that was
because
not
we
from
were poor.
Yeah, exactly. It was not from lack of knowledge, it was more just lack of money and resources.
Yeah.
But we did learn a lot the second time around and make a lot of adjustments based on that first round.
When we put the motor in, we were looking at batteries, and a lead acid battery bank that was 200 amps cost $1,400. The lithium bank for that same 200 amps was $20,000. So we went with the lead acid batteries.
So we had lead acid batteries, which greatly affected our range capabilities in a negative way.
Yeah, we could go full speed for about 20 minutes and then have completely dead batteries.
So the ICW the first time around took us a really long time, and that also affected our ability to find suitable anchorages, which was one of the reasons, bringing it back around, that we ran aground all the time.
Yeah, so we'd simply be in the channel when low tide came around, and the channel wasn't 6.5 feet deep, is the moral of the story. So at low tide, we just come to a stop, and I just dinghy the anchor over to the side of the water, like over to the side of the channel. When the tide would come back up, we'd then swing and be off and not be anchored in the middle of the channel. But in the meantime, we were just anchored. Well, our keel was stuck in the bottom.
I mean, we would sleep at an angle.
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
And I just set my clock for, when high tide, or when the tide would be coming up, and we'd just be watching the boat start moving, like, oh, we're floating, let's get the anchor up and keep moving like 3 more miles.
And
run
it was
around
it was torture because we really could only run like 3, 5, 6 miles a day. I mean,
Yeah.
we were slugging our way down the ICW, and it was so frustrating. I mean, we weren't happy.
Yeah. Most of the time, our speed was 1.8 knots.
Oh, imagine.
It was just.
It's torture.
Do not recommend it. So you have an anchorage that's like one deep anchorage, and the next one is 10 miles away. Normally, you pick up anchor, you go to the next anchorage, you drop anchor, and everything's fine. But for us, that was a week, and we'd be aground all the way along. And the best part is we'd see people in one anchorage, and then we'd see them at the next one, and just let them be. And then they'd make jokes about how they saw us like stopped along the way. It's like, yeah, and we're gonna do that again, going to the next anchorage. It's just past the corner. See you in a week.
Yeah. So our ICW experience the first time around was less enjoyable, but I will say.
Wait, the second time was less enjoyable?
Sorry, the first time.
Oh, okay.
The first time. But I will say we still. It gave us a lot of time to get to know our boat and to become comfortable with it and to kind of make some necessary fixes along the way. So like it was kind of nice. It was a little blessing in disguise that it took us so long to get down that ICW the first time around. Because another big thing that battery capacity and electric drive forced us to do was go outside a lot. So probably the biggest difference between the two ICW journeys that we've done was that the first time around we went outside for about half of it, outside into the ocean.
Yeah.
And the second time around we were inside the entire time, except for like one day.
Yeah, there was a bridge that was closed near Savannah, so we had to go outside of Tybee Island and come back in.
Yeah.
That was it. So in the line of going outside versus inside, since we didn't have any motor to actually motor south, and we couldn't motor outside either, we couldn't go when the weather was nice, and we had to go when it was downwind. So that meant that we would I'd predict when a cold front was coming, and we'd go out the inlet at like slack water, so we could just sit there and not use any power up, and we'd just sit and wait with the storm sails. And then when the storm front would hit, we'd start going like 6 knots, and we just ride it for as long as it was until it passed and then left us with no wind. We just putter in the next inlet. So it was cold, it was stormy, it was rough. Like, it sucked. It was not pleasant.
No.
But it got us south. But man.
And once we got south, it got warmer.
It got warmer, but we'd still go out for the cold fronts.
Yeah.
Like when we left Fort Pierce, it was go out. We were quiet. It was like 11 o'clock at night.
We do overnight runs, and it did get us kind of like used to being like sailing overnight and getting into that rhythm, and learning the boat, like I keep saying. It was really good for that time.
Now, the other big issue that we did was we didn't really have the charging system. So we had the Honda generator, but we had 50-watt solar panels.
Power generation was different. It was different.
And the battery charger was 6 amps. So if we were running the generator, we could only put 6 amps into the battery. And then with the solar panels, we really had like 8 amps available.
We majorly upped our solar game for the second time around.
The solar puts in about 30 amps, and the battery charger puts in 25. So we get, easily we can get 40 to 50 amps coming in.
Yeah.
So that means that we can motor at 40 to 50 amps during the day and not be touching the batteries. So then we can go at, say, 100 amps and really only be drawing 50 amps out of the batteries. Like, it's such a game changer. So, yeah, we'll get into that later when we talk about, like, what you need to do it with electric, because it's very doable, and it was very nice with the second time. With the proper All right.
We'll make our announcement in like 5 or 10 minutes, just so you know. Just a little update on that.
Okay.
Waiting to get 95 to 100 people
All right.
on here.
All right, 100 people. We're at 80 people. So, all you guys, invite 12 of your friends. Based
Yeah.
on attrition, like one of them will come.
We
All right.
did have Gary asking how Morty and the parrots are doing, which is why I was trying to signal to Morty to come
Well,
over.
Morty's just sleeping. And
Yeah, everybody's doing great.
yes. Yeah. So the other issue that we had. Okay. So more stuff. The issues we had, pretty much, the range was too short, so we couldn't actually make it from Anchorage to Anchorage. So that stunk. So that meant that we weren't sleeping in proper places. We were sleeping where we got stuck, not where we wanted to be. Yeah, we couldn't plan where we were going to anchor. It was kind of we're just going to pick up anchor and just try and get somewhere. It was, and I remember there was one day, it was 35 degrees, raining, and windy, and just so awful. And I did not want to move the boat, but Maddie said, she's like, you know, even if we only move 1 mile, that's 1 mile closer to Florida. And that's 1 mile closer to the Bahamas and 1 mile further away from here. So it's like, okay. And it just, you get the anchor up and you just go until the boat started going backwards because the tide was going the other way. It's like, it's miserable, but yeah.
So another really big difference, because when you're in the ICW, I mean, the main reason to do the ICW, in my opinion, is to see the sights. You're seeing the sights and you're experiencing these really fun little towns all along the East Coast.
Which they're awesome.
The thing about visiting these towns is you need to dinghy into the towns.
Oh yeah, dinghies.
And we had a hard dinghy and
oars.
No outboard the first time around.
Because I insisted on oars, no outboard.
We know and love Herbie for his traditional outlook on sailing, but we did make some upgrades the second time around, which were much better.
So the thing was, the reason I didn't want an outboard is because you're always working on them. And when we finally got the Honda, it worked for a couple months, and then I was just working on it until we just gave up on it. And then we got the Suzuki, and they all last about a year. And at a year, it's not that, oh, now it starts giving you problems. It's at a year, you're just tired of fixing this thing. So you chuck it and get another one. And now we have the electric outboard. No maintenance. Like,
it just goes.
Yeah, I've had, we've gotten fishing line hooked in the prop twice. And you just take a little nut,
which is really annoying.
Yeah, it's like, dude, don't fish on a dinghy dock. But anyway, happened twice. So, but you just take a wrench, pop the nut off, pull the prop off, and then just unwind the fishing line, and put it back together.
And that's the only maintenance that we did on that entire setup.
It's awesome.
Which model electric outboard is it?
It's
thank you, Jinx.
Aquos Haswing. It's the 75.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I believe we have a link to it.
There is a link
in our descriptions of our videos.
Yeah, there's a link to it. It's the one that's in every video. It's the Aquos one. I think it was like about $500. So it was cheaper than an outboard.
A gas outboard.
A gas outboard. It puts out about 2 horsepower. It moves our dinghy at 4.5 knots. So that's pretty good because our 2 horsepower dinghy motors would move us at about 4 knots. So
we're not in a hurry, as you guys know.
Yeah, get there when you get there. And as far as fighting currents, it used to be like when we were in Charleston, we could only go to shore or back to the boat at certain times because it had to be slack water because I was rowing from really far away.
Oh, we hit 101 people.
Oh, okay.
Woo! Okay, should we do it?
Super quick. So then with the outboard, like we can just go. It doesn't matter what the tide is, as long as it's not 4.5 knots of current, we can move. So announcement time.
So we have a really big announcement. It is going to change a lot of things, but it's also not going to change a lot of things. So
contradictory statements.
I know. So here's the announcement. I am 8 months pregnant. So that's that. We came back. One of the biggest reasons we came back was to start a family, and we were yeah, thank you guys. One thing we really want to make clear right off the bat is that this isn't going to change the nature of our channel.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a baby channel.
It's not going to be a family channel about sailing with a family. There are so many amazing channels that do that, and we just
Mothership Adrift is one.
yeah,
Check them out.
yeah. There's so many out there. We don't want to have this kid. We don't want to give this kid a strong internet presence in the first years of his life, and it came at a really good time because we are also working on WindPuff right now. So we're going to be in this area in Maryland for a few years working on WindPuff anyway. And so there's going to be sailing, there's going to be fun things. He's going to grow up a little sailor, but we're not going to be really including him in the videos very much.
It's like the birds are in the videos, but the birds, it's not a video about how to sail with birds. It's just like we're sailing, there's a bird chewing on the boat again.
Yes, it's a boy.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the plan, we have 11 winches on the boat, 13 something. That's how many kids we need. That way, they're all automatic. You just yell out a different name.
His due date is early May. It's May 3rd, and so
it's like a month from now.
Yes, it's been
less than a month.
Quite the experience, quite the ride.
Yes.
And it's been really hard keeping it from everybody. But we really wanted our regular videos to come to a conclusion before we announced this, and they just did. So
perfect time.
Baby.
Yes.
Yeah, so he'll be our little helper when it comes to we'll put him to work.
Heck yeah.
Infants love to paint boats.
Think about it. Small children. That means that all the tiny tight places on WindPuff, stick the kid in there, have him do the fiberglassing. It's perfect. That's what my dad did with me. I learned mechanics at a very young age. He's like, you can fit behind the motor on this boat. You crawl back in there. You fix that. Here's a socket wrench.
Aw, you guys, I'm reading your comments.
Yeah.
Thanks, you, guys. Everybody. Thank you. What do you do on WindPuff when you have more kids than winches? That's never going to be a thing.
Yeah, there's going to be so many winches on that boat.
Baby shower already happened. USA for the win. And so that's the big announcement. A lot of you guessed it.
Yeah.
And
we're kind of that age.
We're that age, and a lot of other channels are doing it right now, which is funny. It's just all kind of coinciding. I think it's just the general age of people who are cruising and putting out content like this. It just happens to be
we're in our 30s.
Late 20s, early 30s, and that's when 20s? That happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're young.
Well, I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Yeah.
So yes, Morty's gonna be a big brother.
Yes.
And the girls are gonna be big sisters. We don't know how that's gonna work yet.
Yeah.
We're just gonna play it
by
ear.
You've seen how we do things. We kind of just plan a little, read, learn about it, and then see what happens and go for it. Yeah.
Oh, and very good question. Nancy, what's happening to the Morgan?
Oh, yeah.
So, guys, like I said, this isn't changing a lot. We still have Wisdom. We still have WindPuff. Our plans remain the same for WindPuff. We're going to do a total refit. We haven't started it yet because it's been winter.
Yeah, I tried to start.
Yeah.
It's so cold.
It was so cold.
I couldn't keep doing that.
So it was started, but the major work is still yet to come, and it is going to come. As for Wisdom, we're using this time to give Wisdom a makeover as well. Wisdom was a live aboard boat full time for 10 years. And Wisdom needs some maintenance.
Yeah.
Wisdom went many, many miles and traveled full time for 5 years. And that takes a really large toll on a 1968 boat, or any boat.
Yeah.
So we're going to really embrace this time that we have to help Wisdom
Yes.
as well, because we have a lot of plans for the future for Wisdom as well.
Yes.
Big trips. So yes, Wisdom has a future with us still too. We just have 2 boats.
Yeah, we're
It's
twice
fine.
as crazy. It's yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was our little interlude. Should we get back to
Yes,
the ICW?
yes. Back to the ICW. Okay. Let's see. Where were we?
Aw, thank you, Seahorse. We will make great parents.
Oh, yeah.
I hope so. This kid is going to have a very adventurous life, that's for sure.
So much. I'm going to check a setting in here.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay. What we were saying before the super huge announcement. Okay. So, we would try to go, like, you have the plan of going from one anchorage to another, and we couldn't do it. But then on the way back, we had bigger batteries, we had a lot more charging. We could actually maintain speed and plan and be like, hey, we can go 4.5 knots for this many hours, we need to cover this much distance, and we would plan, and we'd leave one anchorage and then arrive at the next anchorage, and we'd do it during the high tide part. And we'd get there, and we wouldn't run aground, and it was awesome, except one spot where we were going along, and it said it was 12 feet deep, and we hit
It
at
was
high
not.
tide.
It
So
was
that
most definitely not.
one, yeah, that one we were just...
We found the mistake.
we found the charting error. So, but for the most part, like, we were able to just scoot along, and it was nice. So, yeah, it's electric does work with batteries and charging and planning and time.
And just the future, like, which is now, the
Yeah.
present.
Well,
I mean, a big thing about the electric is it kind of worked in 2017.
I mean, it got us there.
Yeah,
Yes.
but in 2022,
It was comfortable.
the technology came so far
Yeah.
that it was just an incredibly different experience.
Yeah.
And so electric, we can say now, works.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah, because another huge thing, everyone says that the electric motor is the weak point. No.
No, it's the
No.
batteries.
Yeah, the motor, it's the same motor.
Yeah, we
But-
have not upgraded our motor at all
But
this whole time.
Yeah, but the battery is the weak point, because if you don't have the power, the motor's not going to spin. So now the batteries have gotten there, and they're so much more affordable. I mean, the batteries that would have cost $20,000 in 2016.
Oh, hey, Zingaro. Thanks.
Oh.
Thanks for joining us on here.
Yeah, so the batteries that we were going to buy in 2016 when we did the motor,
Mhm.
or 2015 when we did the motor.
We did the motor in 2015.
Yeah, wow, it's been a long time. So in 2015, the batteries were 20 grand. In 2021, when we built the batteries, we built double the battery bank for 5,000. It's just the technology is just insane. It's improved so much, and it's even better now. Like, you can,
Yes.
yeah, it's awesome.
Captain Ron asked, when you installed the QT20, which is our motor, did you keep the same prop when you still had a diesel?
Yes.
We did.
So they, when we got the motor, we got it from Electric Yacht, and he asked, what's your prop, and we sent them all the specifications, and based on the pitch and the diameter and actually that's it, pitch and diameter, they then calculate what gearing you need, and then they put a reduction pulley that goes from the motor to the shaft. So depending on whatever prop you have, they just change the number of teeth on the cogs, and then everything works.
I like Mr. Mystery's name suggestions for the baby.
Yes.
If it's a boy, Rigger. Ow, he's kicking really hard. I don't think he liked that. And if it's a girl, Windy. No!
I mean, we already have Wendy on the back of the boat.
Oh, thank you, Caleb. Thank you so much. Um, are we getting an electric motor in Wind Puff?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we are. That's
Yes.
part of our big refit. We're going to be doing all the things we love about Wisdom and all the things that we wish Wisdom had.
Like a bow spray.
Yes.
Finally.
So
excited.
And we love that electric motor. We just love it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yep, we're going to be
Yeah.
making
And
Wind Puff electric.
we're actually talking about which electric motor to go with, because if you're going to build your own and you want something that's 10 kilowatts or smaller, Thunderstruck has a really good kit motor that you can build yourself. And I'm really torn because Thunderstruck, it's like a really nice price, and it looks really good, and it's all the good parts. But the electric yacht, I know the motor
so
in
dependable.
and out. Yeah. And the Wind Puff is going to use the 10 kilowatt motor, which is literally half the motor that the Morgan has on Wisdom. So Wisdom's motor is actually two 10 kilowatt motors with two controllers. It's two of everything in one box, where Wind Puff is going to have one of everything in the same box. That's it. So I know where all the plugs go. So it's just familiar. So I'm going to go with that one because it works really well. And we tested it all the way up the East Coast, done 1,000 miles of motoring. So
yeah, I mean, we really put it through the test.
Yeah, because before people would
crossing an ocean.
Yeah,
like, that's not a test for a motor.
No, we never
so you don't use it.
Yeah.
But the ICW was a true test for this electric drive.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I wouldn't do it any other way. We can take this time to talk about the pros and cons of electric on the ICW.
Yes.
It's a good segue.
Pros, yes.
Yeah, we have a lot more pros than cons.
Yes.
Yes.
I have one pro that. So we were buddy boating with this other guy who had a diesel, and we're going through this stretch that's just like alligator city. Like, don't walk your dog; it'll eat you and your dog. There's so many gators there, and he was complaining because he was ahead of us and didn't see a single gator.
Bye, Barry. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. And he's like, "Where's all the gators?" And we saw all the gators because he had his diesel. So he was going along, and the gators were like, "Oh crap, human," and went away. And then we're coming along, and they didn't hear us or see us.
So the electric motor is so quiet that it allowed us to see all the wildlife along the ICW, and there's so much wildlife.
It's beautiful,
especially in the more marshy areas like Georgia and South Carolina. Oh, it was gorgeous.
Just the golden
We
fields.
loved it so much. Everybody was like, "Why aren't you going outside? You have an ocean-going boat." And we were like, "Because views."
Yeah, we want to see the ICW. So what happened? The reason we did the ICW coming up, well, one of the reasons, is when we were coming down. Every time we pulled into a port, the wind ran out and we had to pull in. That town was awesome. So then we're picking which ports we wanted to stop at on the way north. And we started thinking, we're like, every port was awesome. What if they're all awesome? Let's see them all. So up the ICW we went.
Is 10 kilowatts enough to move a 9,000 pound, 33-foot boat hull speed?
Apparently, yes.
Yes, but you'd have a short range.
No, 10 kilowatts is
hull speed.
Oh yeah, but yeah.
That's the hull speed.
Yeah, so you don't go hull speed.
I mean,
because you
yes,
won't go as far.
but you'll have a short range.
So the whole issue. So I was concerned about it because we're 20 kilowatts. I'm like, is it enough? Because we have a 32-foot water line on Wisdom. Wind Puff is like a 23, 24 foot.
Mm-hmm.
So really short. The important part is Wisdom weighs 36,000 pounds. So
our motor is grossly under.
Yeah, but
it works.
Yeah.
Great for us. So
we're 18 tons.
Yeah.
Half the motor would then be pushing half the weight of 9 tons, which is 18,000 pounds. So I figure that a 9,000 pound, 4.5 ton boat would move very spiritedly with half the motor from Wisdom.
Yes.
That's my theory. We'll let you know when it happens, when we splash it and find out if it was too little.
So anyway.
Yeah.
We were talking about the pros of the electric motor, the quietness.
Yes.
A, we could see all of the wildlife. B, we could have conversations and just relax with the pets and everybody happy throughout the entire journey. It's so quiet.
It's nice. It really
You
is
just
nice.
forget that it's on, and so it's like we'd hear people passing us with their loud diesel motors. And yeah, they were passing us. but we were just able to, I was able to read out loud. As you guys know, I do that for Herbie and myself. Helps pass the time and enhance the experience. And and everybody was just happy. We were just,
yeah, it was great.
yeah. So the quietness, that's a big pro. Another pro is the fact that it's free.
Yeah.
You save so much money. I mean, yes, we paid for the solar panels, we paid for the batteries.
Yeah, but the solar panels were a smidge under $1,000.
And we made our own batteries. So we saved a lot there.
Yeah. So the solar panels were a smidge under $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
When you fill up, when we were coming up the ICW, fuel was like, diesel was like $5-6 a gallon.
It was during the time when there was that enormous hike up of prices.
Like, it honestly got so expensive, we
and
stopped running the generator because we're like, we're not going to pay that. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to sit and charge with the sun because we're crazy. So there's that. I really liked it. Now, another big thing about the concern of, is a 10 kilowatt going to be enough to move the Auberg? The electric yacht has put motors in a lot of Aubergs. They've done a couple Aubergs, I think like 2, where they put a 20 kilowatt because the owner insisted that it needed to have it. And they're like, yeah, sure, here's your motor, give me your money, thank you. Mm-hmm. So they did those. And that guy moves his boat along just fine. And then everyone else has done 10 kilowatt motors. Some have done 5 kilowatt motors. And no one is complaining that they don't have enough power. So the 10 seems to be enough. I'm not going to do 5 because that sounds too small.
And Gary actually brings up another good point, another pro about the electric, and that's the smell. There's no diesel smell.
Oh, yes. I had times when I was jealous because they'd be going by me and I'm like, man, they're going so much faster.
And then we would smell them.
Oh, it was awful. It's like, oh yeah, the diesel fire.
Yeah.
There it is.
So it's cost effective. It is quiet. It is not smelly.
No maintenance.
No maintenance.
Oh, there was another one. We were at Bucksport Marina, and this boat came in and tanked up. Either there or just before. But apparently they had water in their diesel by accident, and it was so much water that it got through the filter and the rate core, and they looked like they blew a head gasket. It was just steam coming out the back of the boat. Mm-hmm. And they pulled in, and they had to, siphon out the whole tank, separate out the water, put the diesel back in. Like, I've never gotten bad fuel because we just charge the batteries.
The sunshine.
Yeah.
Now that was a con. If there was no sunshine,
there was no going.
We didn't go.
Yeah.
So we can get into the cons. The cons
are cons.
There are. The cons are especially cons if you are in a hurry or you need to get somewhere by a certain date. So we plan all of our trips without that limitation because we can't afford to have that because we have an electric motor. So we were getting places at a nice pace the second time around because we had the range and the batteries and everything. However, there were days where we spent like 4 days in a town without planning to because the sun never came out and we just never charged.
Swansboro.
Yep.
We sat there.
That was the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, we just sat there waiting for the weather. And there were other people that just went. Mm-hmm. Now, they had a horrible go.
They did.
Because they went when the weather wasn't nice. So that could also be a lesson.
Yeah. So, that it does limit you. You are very weather dependent. You're very in touch with the weather. And that can be good and bad, for most people that would be seen as a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, just the whole limit and
yeah.
But-
And that's the biggest con, I think,
Yeah.
of the electric motor.
Oh, the other one was when we left Oriental and we anchored by that really weird, fancy marina
Mm-hmm.
that was like that weird lagoon.
Yes.
Yeah, we were stuck there for a while. It was
We
like
were.
a week.
No,
Yeah.
not quite a week, but
No?
yes.
A period of time that passed before we could move on.
But that is where the generator comes in handy.
Yeah.
So, we were just really really didn't want the sound of the generator. But if that does happen to you and the sun doesn't come out for a whole week, you have the generator. That's why you have the generator.
Yeah.
And so that'll help you.
And on Windpuff, we're going to put a generator in there.
Mm-hmm.
A little portable Westinghouse. It's just like a Honda, but half the price. So
Yeah.
that seems pretty good to me. Except the Honda, all right, I don't know why, but the Honda, when you would plug in the battery charger and the battery charger would draw of its amps, the Honda would just rev up and match it and
Mhm.
everything was fine. The Westinghouse, like there's too much of a delay between when the throttle ramps up to meet the power demand. So it would then kick off the generator and then it would cycle and like short cycle over and over, and it was really annoying. And then I just put a string to the throttle lever and had a string that comes out the side of the generator, and I just turn it on, pull the string, rev the motor, turn on the battery charger, and everything was fine. And then, yeah. So I did that.
Adam A has
cheaper.
a good question. Can you talk about your regen experience?
Ooh,
And
yes.
yes, so we're gonna talk about this next week
With the ocean.
with the
especially.
ocean a lot more, because we'll say that regen is fantastic when you are sailing in the ocean
For days.
for many days. It doesn't work in the ICW.
But it does function, but it's not helping.
It doesn't. It's
Yeah.
not worth
Yeah.
doing. Because regen actually
It sucks off your speed.
it forms a lot of
Drag.
yes.
Sorry. I'm a drag.
It forms a lot of drag because it makes your prop slow down.
Yeah. Well,
Which so I mean it just wasn't worth it
yeah,
to
you
use.
lose like a knot and a half.
So in order for it to work, you have to be going a certain speed, and we were very rarely going that speed. And
Mhm.
when we were using more electricity to reach that speed than we were generating. Sort of. No.
You only do regen when you're sailing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What she means to say is when we did hit that speed, we didn't want to have the speed loss to do regen.
Yes.
So then we turn off regen. That way we could keep the speed because we weren't going to have the speed for very long.
So with an electric motor, the question of regen comes up a lot, and so we don't regret having that option because it really was
It's awesome.
it was great to have when we were ocean sailing. But in the ICW, it's pointless. So if you're just doing ICW runs, don't worry about regen. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Okay.
Really good topic. Thanks.
So we did talk about the oars versus the electric outboard. So
Mhm.
yeah, check out the Aquos. Like seriously, it's the Torpedo. We have friends that have been given Torpedos and they said that they break and they're super delicate and they're not worth the money. And then the E-Propulsion, they look awesome. They're really expensive.
Ooh, USA for the win brings up a controversial point. Crossing oceans with only electric motors is risky. I would beg to differ, sir.
Next
We'll talk about that next week. Yeah. And hopefully we'll change your opinion about that. We'll see.
Okay. And then, all right, so another big change that we did that was a huge learning experience was seating. The ICW is sit, look forward, don't turn, don't hit the sides.
For hours on end.
Indefinitely. The first time, I knelt the whole time because I could
We
see.
had one of those captain's chairs.
Yeah, but I couldn't see forward from it
Yeah.
because our cockpit's really deep and the companionway was high. I couldn't
Yeah.
see over it. So I knelt for 1,000 miles. My knees are killing me, and I feel like such an idiot because I never thought, let me move the chair somewhere else. So when we did the second time, I strung up those boards that looked so pretty and just tied them together, and then we sat on those, and I could look forward and see wonderfully, and it was really nice the second time around because I could see.
Yeah, so like the lesson we learned there was basically think about your comfort level and just be resourceful. And you're going to be in the ICW, you're going to be spending hours and hours just looking straight ahead.
Make it comfortable.
Make it comfortable.
Yeah. And also, we needed extra power.
Take the effort.
So we strapped those panels to the bow line, to the lifeline up at the bow. That wasn't pretty. We couldn't sail in that was not safe for ocean sailing, but it gave us an extra 400 watts.
Yeah, we greatly adjusted our boat for the ICW the second time around. Whereas the first time we were always ready to go out into the ocean, which was important because we went out into the ocean. But it was a big differess.
Yeah, we also disconnected Wendy, got those control lines out of the cockpit.
Wendy is our monitor Wendy.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. So we did all those changes to make the boat more purpose-built for the ICW because
we knew we weren't going outside.
We're going to be there for a long
time. And the reason we knew we weren't going outside was because of the pets, which was probably one of the biggest differences between our two ICW experiences. In 2017, we did not have any pets with us. Morty was with my parents for 4 years while we traveled because we didn't feel comfortable bringing him across the Atlantic, and we didn't know when we were going to do the Atlantic crossing. So at any point we could have just gone.
Possibly.
So we asked our parents to watch Morty for 9 months, and that turned into 4 years. Oops.
They love us.
Well, they do love Morty, so it was okay. But it was really important for us to have Morty for the ICW coming up because we missed him so much. And of course, as you know, we have 2 macaws, and they have done ocean. They're okay in the ocean, but it's so much more comfortable for them in the ICW, and they just hung out on in the cockpit, and it was fantastic for all of us, stress-free. But the thing about having a dog in any sailing capacity, even if it's just the ICW, is it adds a lot of stress and a lot of limitations.
Did the hair clog the bilge pump strainer?
There's that. There's also the fact that you need to really do a lot of research about anchorages because every single day, unless you've trained your dog to go on your boat, which congratulations, we're very happy for you.
And somewhat jealous.
Yeah,
everyone constantly is like, why don't you train your dog to go on the deck? Like, wow, 9 years, never thought of that one. So, he won't. He will, he holds
won't
it.
Do it.
He went 36 hours one time and then just popped and just went
exploded all over my pillow.
It was... And he won't go on the deck. And
it's it's not only that, but these creatures they need exercise. Morty needed he was fat. Okay, this boy needed some exercise.
So he got his walk.
Yeah, so he needed 2 walks a day, at least. And so we needed to be in places all the time where Morty had access to land, and that was a challenge. That was a big reason why the second ICW was actually a little harder, because it was limiting.
Yeah, not only was it pick anchorages that the boat would fit in, it was pick anchorages that Morty could have access to shore. And there was one when we did the Alligator River. At the bottom of the Alligator River, the closest that I could get our keel to a dinghy dock, and dinghy dock is a loose term there, was about an hour dinghy ride. And it was kind of like stretching how far the dinghy could go. It was really far. And then at the top of the Alligator River, we anchored in this horrible spot next to a bridge, simply to run him in the shore, let him do his stuff, go back to the boat, and then move the boat to a better anchorage. And so we had a few of those.
Traveling with a dog is so rewarding and fun, and it gets you to land, it gets you out, and
Also gets people talking to you.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, the Queen's dog.
Yeah, I think people mostly talk to us because of the birds.
Yeah. So if you're walking Morty alone, they'll talk to you about Morty. If you got the birds, they don't even recognize him.
Yeah.
He's
So
invisible.
I mean, I would not have traded it for anything. These animals brought us so much joy along our whole last year of cruising. I would never recommend taking them across an ocean. That just is a whole host of other
You have broccoli on your face.
good challenges and things. People do it. Great, power to them. But I'm really glad that we didn't have Morty when we were crossing an ocean.
Yeah, cats are a different story.
The ICW lends itself so well to having a dog and pets and everything. It was a really wonderful experience to have them with us.
Awesome.
But it was limiting and it was challenge.
A lot of the places when you go, there's a dinghy dock, they'll have the dog poop bags. They'll even have signs like dog station. Like, there's, whoo, Morty farted. Whoa! Wow. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pets, they were good and bad. And also, if you have birds on your boat,
Mm-hmm.
my condolences.
I mean,
to
yeah, to be honest, like the birds destroyed the boat. Like it was not a good thing, We love that we have them, and we would not.
Yeah, I wanted a bird so bad.
Yeah, we would never take it back.
Yeah,
ever.
But the poor boat.
But
which is part of why we're like, hey, let's fix this.
Take some time and fix the boat.
Clean, fix.
Yeah. Good question. Are you guys gonna cruise on the bay at all this season? Yeah. I really hope to.
Oh yes.
We're gonna have an infant, but we're gonna do it.
But I mean, they're small. They sit in that car seat, and I'm just gonna rig up a way to strap the car seat to the boat.
Yeah.
Off
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
They make tiny little life jackets.
They do for dogs.
For babies.
Put a dog on them.
Sure.
It's all the same.
Yeah, we do want to get out. Which is one of the reasons why, like, we're always gonna have one boat on the hard and one boat in the water at least.
Yeah, I thought about
Yeah.
putting Wisdom next to Windpuff and like work on both of them.
No, we want to be able to just go. We want to be able to just leave the dock.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely gonna be cruising and introducing this little baby to the wet life, the salt life, as soon as possible.
So
we miss it already.
so much. This winter's been brutal.
Yeah.
Like it's been a mild winter.
Yeah.
But I haven't been sailing.
Mm-hmm.
So another point that
we will have to wrap up RM.
Oh yes.
That would be really fun.
Yes. So another big one was when we went south, because of the batteries and the electric setup we had, we could not do Georgia because tides, currents, and it was so windy. And we completely skipped it. We went offshore and then we went, where did we go? Charleston straight to, no, we went Georgetown straight to Fernandina. Completely skipped Georgia entirely.
Yeah. And Georgia is a highlight of the ICW.
Gorgeous.
It is so beautiful. There are people who hate it because it's so long and winding.
And you will like spend the whole day and just be looking across the marsh and just use zigzags. But the birds and the
wildlife,
critters, and so gorgeous.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Georgia was awesome.
And Savannah is so cool.
Yes. Man, I can't wait to get back there. So that's the other huge point for Windpuff is Windpuff draws 4.5 feet. We're gonna get to that in a moment when we talk about some other things.
Skipping ahead.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Right. But that's okay. We should talk about
real quick weather and the navionic stuff. So two changes. So the weather difference. When we were heading south, the prevailing winds on the east coast blow from south to north. So that means that when you're going south, you're going into the wind. So that means that you can only sail on days that are miserable and no one wants to sail because it's cold front blasting south. Now, when you're going through North Carolina, you're really traveling east-west because it's like, that's the state. So north or south wind is being reached, so it doesn't really matter there. But then when you get further down, you know, South Carolina, all that, you're going south. So it's nice to have more motor and more battery because then you can actually motor into the wind and make your distance. Coming north, we had the winds behind us. So all we did, I mean, most of the way, we just raised the staysail. Just pull us along.
And where we had room, we sailed.
Yes. It was so nice.
And sailing the ICW is really beautiful. Like, it's wonderful. And sometimes we'd have the right winds and everything, and we'd be sailing, and somebody would putter by us, and then we see them just
get their sails out.
Put out their sails.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd radio and be like, yay, you know, and they'd be like, you inspired us. Because it's easy to forget it's easy to forget that you're in a sailboat on the ICW.
Because the ICW, it's a road. And like, people are just traveling. It's like driving 95. You're going. You're not looking at the sights, and you forget to look. And you're out there not to move the boat. You're out there to enjoy the ICW.
Hopefully.
So unless you're delivery captain. Chop chop. Get to work. Make the distance. Oh, there was one boat. He was a Sabre 40 some odd, going 28 knots and burning about 100 gallons an hour. And I did some rough math because to get from Florida to the Annapolis Boat Show, which he was heading towards, I assume, he was going to burn about $300,000 in diesel. Just putting that out there. Anyway, the other big thing is equipment-wise. We don't have radar. When it was really foggy and we couldn't see, except for that one time in Savannah, we just didn't go. We waited for the fog to pass. We had AIS, and we had AIS on the second leg, which was really handy because
we
really
didn't.
busy
We
inlets.
had it on the first leg, but we didn't.
We only received.
We didn't
transmit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm completing all of her sentences.
It's okay.
Laugh.
It's less effort for me.
Yeah. But it was nice because there were some times we'd be anchored, and it's an anchorage that's just outside the channel, right after a river bend where people can't really see that you're there, and tugboats are coming through fast at night, and they knew miles ahead that we were anchored there. So that was very nice. Okay. Now.
So, for the last segment of this video, we just want to talk about some things about our boat that were pros on the ICW specifically and cons. So
it's pretty much, if you're going to just do ICW, these are the features you want to either look for in a boat that you're buying or make your boat have.
Right.
Because you already bought the boat.
And so for us, the biggest, there were, I guess we always start with cons, you know, start with the negative, end with the positive.
Sure.
But our keel was actually both a positive and a negative.
The draft was the negative. So we draw 6.5. Don't do that.
That's not ideal at all.
It can be done. It proved that you can physically do it. But there were a lot of times we literally anchor and wait for the tide to come up before going through this next stretch because
we couldn't fit.
Yeah, and when we go through it like mid-tide that was rising, we'd have like 8 inches under us.
There were a lot of times when we literally had less than a foot under our keel, and we were just like, well,
any moment. Yeah.
It could be stressful. So our keel was a detriment just because of how deep it is.
Yeah. So try to have a 4.5 foot draft or less.
Yeah.
Like there, you're gonna be happy.
If you're doing the ICW.
Yes.
And
another detriment.
Yes, the exposed cockpit. That's something that we actually are going to be updating or upgrading on both of our boats. We want to close in the cockpit because it's just, especially on the way down the ICW the first time around when it was cold and miserable, having a closed-in cockpit would have changed everything.
I see people with their like fully enclosed cockpits just sipping coffee with their heat on.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah, 5.5 is fine. 5 foot is fine. I mean, we were fine at 6.5. It was
it was a lot of
was, yeah, you had to put more effort into planning and route planning.
Yeah.
And tidal planning.
So another thing that was challenging for us is our boat doesn't have much space for solar. So we remedied that by strapping them to the lifeline.
We just put solar anywhere
So
we could.
classic.
Yeah.
It's like this area doesn't really get hit much panels. Yeah.
Mosquitoes were rough.
Oh, Mosquito Lagoon or Bay?
Yeah, that's another reason enclosed cockpits
Yeah.
would be really nice.
Very much. And another reason not having pets on the boat, especially parrots, would be nice because then you can use bug repellent
Yeah, we couldn't use bug repellent.
because it's toxic to the birds.
Yeah, so we were just
feeding the mosquitoes.
miserable.
Yeah.
You know, sacrifices you make.
Yep. All right.
The keel, having the full keel is a
Wait,
really.
wait, wait.
Well, it
We're
gets
on the cons
pushed
yet.
by the currents.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's a con.
Yep.
Having the full keel, it like I said, it's both, but we'll talk about the con first.
Yep.
The con was that you really, I mean, in the ICW, it's a river, so the currents are super strong, and with a full keel, you're getting pushed all over the place with these currents and counter currents.
Especially inlets with tide changes. You're going along and everything's good, and you're just going this way, and then you get sucked to the side, and then
And in anchorages, I mean, there are a lot of tight anchorages. If you're going at the right time of year,
Beaufort.
yeah, you're swinging completely differently from everybody else.
Yeah, all the powerboats and catamarans are one way,
Yeah.
and then you're just going the other way.
Yeah.
All right, another one, our length. We're 45 feet. If we pulled into a marina, we had to pay for 45 feet.
Yeah, it gets expensive.
And then you get to an anchorage, and there's all these like 20-foot boats just like stuck in there, and they're fine. And you come in, you're like, I need tons of swing room because I'm long, and I'm gonna smack into everything. So that was.
And
tricky.
speaking of swing room, we weigh
Heavy boat.
so much. We are a very heavy. I mean, we are an ocean boat that was doing the ICW, so
Well put.
we have such a heavy displacement that we would need so much scope. So we needed such a radius around us whenever we anchored, which, you know, isn't easy to find in the ICW. A lot of really tight anchorages there.
Just like you pull off and there's a creek that you can anchor in, but the creek is 60 feet wide and the boat's 45. So right there, if we just twirl, we take up 90 feet.
Yeah.
So we can't rotate, so you need to do two anchors. It was a pain. And then the other thing, we have internal water tanks, and it's not that the tanks are inside the boat like everyone's boat. It means that the fill plates to fill the tanks are inside the boat. Now this is really good for the ocean, because imagine if you're sailing along and, you know, great sailing, rails in the water, and your breather vents underwater, or your deck plate's not really that tight, and salt water gets in and contaminates your tank, and then the next time you go to drink, it's salty. It's gross. You're out of water and you're in the ocean, you are now screwed. So our tanks don't have that problem because the vents are inside the lockers, which if you heel too far, your clothes get soaked. Huge plus. And second, the filling is inside. So it's all inside the boat. So as long as you're not underwater, you're good. And then you pull into a dock and they have a hose to fill your tanks, and you're like, excuse me a second, I need to like run this hose all through my boat, all these different lockers to fill my tanks.
Yeah. It literally takes an hour to fill our tanks, just because like once one tank is full, you have to then switch the hose to the next tank.
Yeah, we have 4 15-gallon tanks, 2 20-gallon tanks, and 2 30-gallon tanks.
And they're all like dispersed throughout the boat.
Yeah. And then someone else comes in and they just pop the hose in while they're putting in their diesel, and then hopefully into the correct tanks, because I've seen people do it backwards. It's really bad. But anyway, they just put the hose in and it just gurgles and like, oh, I'm full, and they close off. I'm like, that was easy.
And I'll say it's been a challenge in the current marina where we are, because the winter water, when you're living aboard in a marina, they shut off the water at some point because everything would freeze. If you're in the north. And So they were like, no problem. On Wednesdays, we come around and fill your tanks for you.
Yeah, like just mark your deck fill.
And we were like, oh, that's fun, except that one of us needs to be here because we need to get the hose somehow into our boat to then fill all of our tanks, like sequentially. And they were like, no.
Yep.
So it's a bucket brigade every time we need to fill our tanks, which is a pain.
But they're soon going to be turning on the water again.
Yeah.
So
Woo.
that'll be nice. All right. So those are the cons.
Mhm.
Now for the pros. Things
Full
that
keel.
Yeah. So it's not if you run aground in the ICW. It's when you run aground in the ICW. And my favorite was this guy that was like booking it and then came to a stop. And I was behind him. I'm like, not going there. So, but he was a fin keel, and then he was freaking out, and like, you know, we made sure before we left the area that he wasn't sinking. Just all that stuff.
Running aground is really chill for us because of our full keel.
Yeah.
And it's just because the keel is so strong and it's not going anywhere. We don't have the stress of thinking our keel's gonna break off if we like hit ground too hard. We just kind of go.
Yeah. That's exactly how it is.
And it's not, you know, our boat is not in trouble if we run aground.
So,
And it's easier if we do need to get pulled off of something by sea tow. They just pull us off.
Yeah.
Like,
well, when we got towed into Hatteras,
yeah.
the guy, he's like
Way in the beginning.
Way in the beginning, heading south when we were trying to do the ocean.
Just don't worry about it.
It's fine. Yeah. So we're coming in the inlet, and there's a sounding boat ahead of the tow boat to like figure out where we can fit in. And he's like, "What's your draft?" I'm like, 6.5. He's like, "What kind of keel?" I'm like, "Full keel." He's like, "All right, hold on." And he just like straight over the sandbars.
Boom.
Yeah. He's like, "You're
and
good."
it was fine.
Yeah. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
So, second thing, when you run aground, full keel with an attached rudder, because if you have a spade rudder.
Yeah. So the other thing that's really nice about our boat and important for the ICW is our mast height.
Yeah.
We're 55.
Yes.
We believe.
I've never actually.
Yeah. We're 55 feet mast height, and so it's ideal, to be honest, because it's high enough that you get tons of sail area and you're great for the ocean, and it's low enough that you fit under all the bridges.
Yeah. So I've seen at boat shows where they sell like a Beneteau and it's got the 68 or 70 foot mast, and they're like, "Oh, we have an ICW version that's 64 feet or 64.6."
The tides are so, I mean, you just don't know.
We'd see so many of those boats waiting at a bridge anchored because they're waiting for the tide to go down so they can get through.
Yeah.
Where we're just like, doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, 55 is a really nice height. You know, there's still bridges that you have to wait for because they are swing bridges or drawbridges. You know,
but those are like 10 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody's getting through those.
Yeah.
55 foot mast was perfect for getting under. We were never scared, except that we were always scared.
Yeah. The foreshortenings is horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely having a mast that's 55 or less, that is a really, really nice feature. The 60, we'd see, there was one bridge. So our general rule is if the bridge is at least 60 foot clearance, in we go, don't worry about it because we think we're about 55. There was one bridge that was 58. And we fit.
It was close.
Yeah.
But we did fit.
We did fit. But it was terrifying. So if you have a 60 foot mast, you wouldn't fit there. So, you know, just things to consider. All right. Diesel heater.
The diesel heater was fantastic. I mean, we talk about the diesel heater all the time because we love it so much.
Yeah, it's great.
We don't need to go super into it,
No,
but it was really
awesome.
Great when we were in the ICW in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
It just kept morale up.
Or even just like a damp day, it just dries the boat out.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay. This one's a creature comfort. So before, when we had our lead acid batteries and no way of actually charging them because 50 watts of solar, we couldn't run anything electrical. So we couldn't have hot water from an electric water heater. now we have so much power that we run our dinghy off of it, and I found that they make 48-volt DC water heaters. So no inverter, none of that mess. Just screw it in, wire it up.
So we could
Hot
take
water.
warm showers. It was so,
So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and doing dishes with not freezing your hands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So nice. Okay. The other thing that's really nice for the ICW is large tankage.
Mm-hmm.
So
we talked about our water tanks and how they're set up and how it's annoying, but it's really nice to have a lot of water tanks.
we carry 160 gallons.
Yeah,
So
because for us, like the only reason we were ever pulling in anywhere was to fill up our water tanks, obviously, because we didn't need diesel. So everybody would come in and get their diesel or gas, and we'd just be like, water, please, and they loved us.
Yeah, so we'd actually talk with the fuel doc. So like, hey, we're just getting water, we're electric. Like, when's your least busy time? Like, when do you want us to come in here? And they're really nice about it.
So yeah, just having large amounts of water tanks was great because we didn't have to stop so frequently.
Yeah, and also you can shower and do your dishes and not be as worried about your water between one marine and the next because you got tons of water. Okay.
Yeah, a couple more things and then we'll wrap up.
Yes. So the oven, it's just cookies, hot meals.
Haven't
so nice.
We didn't have an oven on the way down.
No.
So that
ovens are really nice.
That was a nice thing that we, just a nice little upgrade.
Yeah. Now, another big one. People love electric windlasses, and I am very jealous of electric windlasses, but a manual windlass will save your anchor. Because when we were in Charleston, we hooked our chain around an old mooring screw, and our manual windlass, with my arms, muscled that sucker up out of the water, and I was able to free our chain from it and get our anchor back. And then when we were in the Waccamaw, we snagged a tree, and it didn't want to budge. Now, these forces would break or kill an electric windlass motor. Like it can't handle that. And our windlass, we just kept cranking, pulled it up, low gear, out it goes. So a manual windlass is really nice to have because you can't really hurt them. Like as long as your arm can do it, it'll pull that chain in. And then the last thing is the electric motor.
Which
we already did. Yes.
So we covered all of our things, which is great because I'm starting to get really uncomfortable.
So next week, she'll be an extra week pregnant. And we're going to be talking about the ocean crossing and stuff that, like, the same. What we learned, pros, cons, what we would do again, what we wouldn't do again.
So guys, what we're doing here is a series of 3 live videos as like a reflection and conclusion of our 5-year journey that we have just finished in the videos, because we're going to be taking a little break of putting out edited videos for obvious reasons. I was editing fiercely and ferociously all the way up until this last video that just went out, and I'm not going to have the time to do that with a newborn baby. And neither is Herbie.
Maternity leave.
Yeah. So we're going to be taking a little break from putting out our regular episode content. So we wanted to kind of conclude with these live videos and talk about just like our 5 years, what we learned, what we would do differently, and a little bit about the future as well. And so I just think that it's important to connect with you guys about that. And we're so excited for this new adventure that is coming in our lives. And we can't wait to share that experience with you. But like I said, our videos are still going to be mostly boat centric, not baby centric really at all.
The kid might hand me a wrench from time to time.
So yeah, we hope that you'll stick with us and be patient while we take a little break from editing. We're going to be still putting out some how-to stuff, some of our fun little educational things that Herbie's going to make for you guys while I'm doing other things. But we really thank you for those of you who are going to stick with us and wait it out. And we'll get those wind puff videos out to you as soon as we start the projects, which is going to be this summer.
So excited.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, we're both like really excited about the future of Rigging Doctor. We hope that you are too. And we thank you for joining us on these last few live videos that we give you guys in the meantime. Okay. And so with that, I will say goodbye. And happy Passover if you celebrate Passover. Happy Easter if you celebrate Easter. And have a wonderful sunny weekend.
Bye.